Hi, I wanted to share just a quick thought that I've had this last week, thinking about discussions that I have with atheists about specifically about the topic of morality and the back and forth that I have with them, different arguments that are thrown out. And my basic argument, as I've said before in some of my videos, is that for any kind of moral framework to exist that's really worth anything at all, it has to come from a perfect source. Because if you're talking about a perfect idea of morality, it has to come from perfection. One of the things that I've said in one of my other videos is that imperfection can't tell imperfection what perfection is. So in just thinking about morality and thinking about how we need that perfect standard and discussions I have with atheists, one thing that they'll throw out at me is this argument, and it's that, well, how can God be the source of morality when I'm going to point to all these things in the Old Testament that show how wicked He is and how many evil things that He's done, and they're usually, and I'd say all of them actually are only about Him taking life or putting judgment on people for sin in their lives, and that they think that's a contradiction. I've shown in other videos why that's not a contradiction at all, or against His character or the framework that He's given us, and it doesn't violate that standard. But that argument is supposed to be that if someone who claims to be the source of our morality does things that are immoral, that disqualifies them from being that source of how we ought to live our lives and what it means to live a moral life. But if that's the argument that we're supposed to use, then we also have to apply it to ourselves. Because when atheists do that, when they try to disqualify God from being the source of morality, they're insinuating that then we must be the source of morality. We have to be the ones that make these moral precepts and moral. We're the ones that make this moral framework, essentially. But if that's the standard that disqualifies God, then it far more disqualifies us because of how much greater we've failed and how much worse the things are that we've done than anything that God has done. And just, go down the list of things that God hasn't done that we actually have done. God's never lied to anyone. He's never raped anyone. He's never cheated on a loved one. He's never been arrogant or hateful or a gossiper. I mean, when you go down the list, and if you're being intellectually honest, our rap sheet is so much worse than God's is that it's not even a comparison. And if I honestly had to choose between God or men for the source of what morality really means, I'm going to choose God any day of the week, because even if you struggle with some of the things that God has done in the Old Testament, we have done so much worse that we don't have any reason to think that people should take us seriously for all the awful things that we collectively as the human race have done. And so if that argument holds true, and I think just in me saying this, it shows that it doesn't hold true, but if it did, we are so much worse off that we have no reason to think that we would be the ones that determined right and wrong based off our own perceptions of morality, which contradict each other in the first place, so it doesn't really mean anything to begin with. That's just a thought I wanted to share, and I think it really shoots in the foot the idea that because God supposedly is so much, has done all these immoral things, that we then become the source of morality, or we're the ones that determine right and wrong. And I think that points out why that absolutely can't be the case. So I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.